Okay, let's dive straight in today. We're doing a deep dive into something that might feel a bit counterintuitive.
Mm.
It's this idea of duality, specifically within human consciousness, looking at the interplay between what our source material calls light and shadow.
Right. The light and the shadow. It's a powerful
It
metaphor.
really is. And the source we're drawing from, it's this fascinating philosophical text. It's almost, well, it's written metaphorically like a guide.
Yeah, less like a dry textbook, more evocative.
Exactly. And it talks about how these opposing forces aren't just out there in the universe somewhere. They're actually like deeply woven into us, fundamentally part of who we are.
Hmm.
So our mission today is really to unpack the source's main idea, which is that real growth, real understanding, becoming whole, it isn't just about trying to be the good parts,
Oh, light aspects.
right, the bright, happy, easy stuff, and then just shutting away anything difficult or uncomfortable to shatter. The source says it's actually about embracing both.
Which is definitely not the usual self-help message sometimes.
No. And it immediately brings up that big question, doesn't it? Like, why do we tend to run from the shadow? And what does this source say actually happens when we try to deny it?
That's really the starting point in the text. It positions this duality thing not just inside us, but as like a basic principle of the whole cosmos.
The whole universe.
Yeah, it describes the universe itself as this incredible ongoing dance of opposites. Hot and cold, expansion, contraction.
Creation and destruction, maybe.
Exactly, creation and destruction. But the text makes this really important point. These aren't necessarily fighting all the time. It's not a war.
Oh, okay. So how does it frame them?
More like partners. They actually define each other.
Yeah.
Like, you can't really grasp the idea of a star without the concept of the void it sits in, or song without silence.
That contrast gives them meaning.
Precisely. That tension, that contrast, that's what gives everything its shape, its meaning, its form, according to this source.
Okay, so if that's the cosmic picture,
Hmm.
how does that relate back to us, to people? Are we just little nations of that?
That's exactly what the source suggests. It brings that massive idea right down to the human level. It basically says, yeah, we humans are microcosms of this cosmic truth.
So that dance is happening inside us, too.
Uh-huh. Inside every single one of us, there's this whole universe of opposing forces playing out. Joy and sorrow, courage and fear.
Wisdom and ignorance.
Wisdom and ignorance, love, and this phrasing is interesting. The source calls it the absence of love, rather than hate necessarily.
Huh, right.
And these internal opposites, this is what the writing suggests we tend to label as our light and our shadow.
Got it.
And, it observes that we spend a lot of energy trying desperately to cling just to the light.
Yeah, the positive, the easy stuff.
The approved parts, yeah.
Yeah.
While actively pushing away, rejecting, ignoring the shadow.
I mean, that feels relatable. Who really wants to sit with the parts of themselves they judge or feel ashamed of or fear?
Exactly right. And the source
No.
points this out, this very common human tendency. People chase the light, thinking that's where all the good stuff is, all the value.
And they shun the shadow.
They shun the shadow. They fear its darkness, its flaws, maybe the uncomfortable truths it holds about them,
It feels safer that way, maybe?
perhaps. The source uses this really nice analogy. It says, you might try to paint your life using only the brightest, cheeriest colors, right? Shoving all the dark or muddy shades into the corners of your mind, hoping they'll just, poof, disappear.
But they don't.
They don't. And the source points out, you might seek only sunshine, but think about a landscape. It's the interplay of sun and shadow together that actually carves the mountains, paints the rich colors in the valleys.
Ah, so denying one side actually flattens your own inner landscape.
That's the idea. It makes things less dimensional, less real.
Okay, so what happens then, according to the source, when we try to flatten ourselves like that? When we, shove the shadow into those corners, does it just stay there quietly?
Well, the text is pretty clear on this. It says, nope, it doesn't just disappear because you ignore it. In fact, it often does the opposite. It gets denser, maybe stronger, festering away in the dark, just waiting for acknowledgement.
Waiting for us to look at it.
Yeah. It's where the source says your unexpressed anger tends to live, your unexamined fears, those bits of yourself you've decided are unlovable or unworthy.
Okay, wow.
And quite powerfully, it says that this hidden shadow side, it's like a neglected hatchling. It cries out for attention.
How does it do that? How does it cry out?
Often the source suggests by manifesting as what it calls your struggles.
Our struggles, like what?
Things like persistent anxiety, patterns of self-sabotage, Maybe those really sharp judgments you find yourself making about other people.
Oh, interesting. Judgments of others.
Yeah, the writing suggests those judgments are often just reflections of your own inner turmoil, your own unacknowledged shadow, trying desperately to get your attention.
Wow, okay. So the shadow isn't just bad stuff we have locked away. It's the ignored stuff that actually causes the most problems. That feels like a really key insight.
It really is.
And it seems like this leads directly into the source's main point then, that trying to be only light isn't just like impossible, it's actually damaging. It stops us from being whole.
Absolutely. That's the absolute core message here. The source argues that tree consciousness, the kind that's robust, capable, fully alive, has to embrace both light and shadow.
Both, not one or the other.
Both. It suggests that many of your best qualities, your most celebrated light aspects, think kindness, intelligence, compassion. These are often forged and strengthened in the challenging landscape of your shadow experiences.
Like through mistakes or vulnerability.
Exactly. Mistakes, vulnerabilities, moments of doubt. Think about it like a hero's courage. It's most meaningful when you see it against the fear they had to overcome, right?
Yeah, sure.
Or a sage's wisdom. It isn't just about knowing things. It's often deepened by the folly, the mistakes they've personally navigated or seen. The light qualities often get their depth, their power, from the shadow ground they grew out of.
So, okay, instead of seeing this internal duality as a problem we need to solve or a conflict we need to win, the source sees it more as what, like a necessary engine for growth?
Precisely. That's a great way to put it. The text portrays this whole dance of duality not as some kind of curse or flaw in the system, but actually as a gift.
A gift? How so?
Because it provides the essential tension, the contrast, the dynamism that fuels your growth, your evolution, the unfolding of your purpose.
Right. Without the contrast, things are static.
Exactly. So according to this viewpoint, when you resist one side of yourself, usually the shadow, you're basically resisting the process of life itself. You're trying to stop the dance.
And if you embrace both,
Well, then the source says you become whole. You move past being fragmented, partly visible, partly hidden. Instead, you become, I really like this phrase they use, a complete luminous entity.
wow, a complete luminous entity. That sounds pretty good.
Doesn't it? It suggests someone who's capable of really navigating and appreciating the full spectrum of human experience,
Yeah.
not just the easy bits.
Okay, that's a compelling vision. But like how? How do you actually do that? If the goal isn't to defeat the shadow, but to integrate it, what does that actually look like in practice? Does the source give any practical steps?
It does, yeah. It doesn't just leave you with the theory. It suggests a process, and it uses this rather evocative name for it, the dragon trial.
The dragon trial. Okay, that sounds a little intense.
Lightly, it sounds dramatic, maybe, but the idea behind it is quite insightful. It's basically an invitation to do some quiet introspection, a way to start this process of integration.
Okay, I'm listening. How does the dragon trial work?
All right, so it asks you to pick a quality or maybe an emotion within yourself that you generally dislike,
Yeah.
something you judge pretty harshly, or maybe try to hide from others or even from yourself.
Like impatience
Hmm.
or insecurity, procrastination.
Exactly. Things like that. Impatience, insecurity, procrastination, maybe a recurring anger you regret, whatever kind of rises up for you. Pick one dragon.
Okay, pick a shadow I'd prefer wasn't part of me. Got it.
Right. So the first step in this trial is just to acknowledge it's there. Without the immediate judgment, without trying to shove it away, just observe it and say, okay,
Yeah,
you exist. I see you.
just acknowledge it. Okay.
Then the source asks you to get curious and consider this. When, if ever, has this shadow quality actually served you? Even if it was in a messy or complicated or totally unexpected way.
Served me. How could impatience serve me?
Well, the source gives examples like that. Maybe that very impatience actually pushed you to take action when you otherwise would have just stayed stuck in indecision.
Okay, I can see that.
Or maybe feeling insecure about something actually drove you to prepare way more thoroughly than you would have if you'd felt totally breezy and confident. It's asking you to look for its hidden function, however clumsy.
That's a different way to look at it. Searching for the purpose behind the thing, I usually just try to stamp out.
Exactly. And building right on that, the next question the trial poses is, what might this shadow be trying to teach you? Is there an unmet need hiding behind it? An unacknowledged part of yourself that this difficult quality is representing?
So digging deeper than the surface behavior.
Right. Exploring the root. What's underneath the impatience? What's underneath the insecurity?
Okay.
And then finally, The trial asks you to try and identify, say, 3 potential gifts or lessons that this shadow quality might hold for you if you were willing to actually embrace it, learn from it, instead of just fighting it all the time.
Gifts from insecurity.
Potentially. What new perspective or strength or understanding could it unlock if you stopped seeing it purely as an enemy?
So just to clarify, it's not about suddenly saying, oh, being insecure is great, or yay,
No,
impatient.
no, not at all.
Yeah. It's more like understanding, okay, why am I insecure in this situation? What's that feeling trying to signal? Maybe it's pointing to a need for more preparation, or maybe it shows I really care about the outcome. And then seeing how that deeper understanding could actually be useful, could be a kind of gift.
You've got it exactly. And the source adds a really crucial note here. This trial, this whole process, is absolutely not about condoning harmful behavior towards yourself or others. That's not the point.
Right. Important distinction.
Very. It's
Yeah.
purely about understanding the underlying motivations, those deeper currents inside you, and integrating all these different facets of who you are. The source frames it as a kind of internal reconciliation, bringing those exile parts back into the community of your conscious self.
Internal reconciliation. I like that. So wrapping this all up then, this deep dive really does flip the script on how we usually think about self-improvement, doesn't it?
It really does.
It challenges that whole idea that we should just relentlessly focus on cultivating the light side and trying to eradicate the dark.
Completely. The source presents this, I think, quite compelling alternative. That real resilience, genuine strength, that feeling of being truly whole and integrated.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from suppression or elimination.
It comes from...
It comes from acknowledging the shadow, getting curious about it, understanding it, and actively integrating those parts we've labeled as dark or flawed into our complete self-portrait.
And this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea to ponder.
Not at all.
Yeah.
This is really about understanding your own inner landscape.
Yeah.
You know, those parts of you that feel like struggles or weaknesses. And it invites you to consider the possibility, just the possibility,
Yeah.
that there might be unexpected strength or hidden wisdom or some really valuable insight waiting for you precisely in those places you've tried hardest to avoid looking.
Right. In the shadows themselves. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to carry around, doesn't it? Something to consider as you go about your day. What if the very thing you dislike most about yourself, that shadow quality you've maybe spent years trying to hide or fix, what if that actually holds a hidden key to your growth? What if there's a gift in there you haven't even begun to unwrap yet? Something to maybe waltz with, as the source might say.